and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
Okay, another Savvy Radio Show with, the guy that I'm going to do a lot of shows with. I'm so excited. 12 years experience in the real estate on the radio, but over 50-something years in experience. We're about to find out more about Pat Pointon. He has been a mentor to one of my mentors. He has a library of thousands and thousands of hours of the radio of questions and answers, from a mobile home park to a storage facility. It's been in his veins. This guy breathes oxygen. And please let me introduce Pat Pointon. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. Glad to be here. Let's do it.
Today we're talking about money. We're talking about private money. We're talking about self-directed IRAs. This is, I believe, a hot topic, not only for myself, because these are things that I have not done yet, and I haven't raised private money. I haven't need to. I've been fortunate, but my bank shut me down the other day. They said, no more. You're over your limit. I was like, oh, okay. And self-directed IRA was minimal. Well, then I just fell in love with Pat for the years. I live vicariously through other people that have been on his bus tour, that have been involved with him throughout the years. And we've connected. He came on the bus tour, and long story short, he has so much wisdom. We can have the longest podcast to date, but we're going to keep it kind of down and dirty. So, Pat, tell me about real estate. Just give people a few minutes about who you are, where you came from. I know you have a whole history and family of real estate, so we want to know more about you.
Well, I grew up in the real estate business. I learned most everything that I do from my father. I followed him around. Most of the time I didn't even know I was learning, But my father was a real estate developer. He subdivided property. He built houses. He built warehouse buildings. He raised private mortgage money. That's where I really came up with the idea.
Cool.
He used to borrow money from individuals. He didn't know what an IRA. There wasn't an IRA in existence, but he found wealthy individuals who would make him a loan, very much like what I do today.
Okay.
And he would use that money to buy a piece of property, cut it up into acreages, sell it, finance it himself, and when the payments came in, he would make a payment on to the investor and keep the difference.
Okay.
And he did over 1,000 of those transactions in his early years, and that's where I started.
And you had a mortgage company as well. What all the entities that you had?
I owned a mortgage company in Fairfax, Virginia.
Okay.
It was a net branch of Source One Mortgage Company, which is one of the larger lenders that's now sold out to another lender. But anyway, I was the first net branch on the East Coast in the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area in Fairfax, Virginia. They did, we did maybe somewhere in the area around $100 million a year in originations.
Okay.
In my mortgage company.
And now you're in storage units, right?
I own a storage unit, a small, not a large one, a fairly small one.
Okay.
120 units.
Okay.
Room there to expand to about 400 units at some point in time, which I bought from a bank in distressed situation. And I also financed it with private investor. Okay.
And you've been in commercial property. You have some office space at one time.
Yeah, I own some offices. I don't own any at the moment. I'd like to buy some more. I buy and sell is what I do in my life.
Single family? You
own
have some units now?
About 35, I guess, at the moment, and that changes from time to time. I got 3 coming up to sell.
One claim to fame, another claim to fame that I've heard. So let me give you a quick story. So there's a guy that kind of mentored me. His name's Stephen Earp. And he was getting mentored under Pat Pointon and went to bus tour. It was an awesome story that he's like, if someone doesn't buy this house on this weekend, I'm going to buy it. Well, my buddy bought it and flipped it and made $20,000. So all the time I hear all these great stories about Pat and what he's done. I'm like, who is this guy? Well, one day I was dealing with some tenant drama. And massive tenant drama. And I'm like, so I called my mentor, Steven, at that time. His name's Stephen Earp. And I was like, dude, hey, how do I handle this? He's like, I don't have tenants. I learned that from Pat, where I sell them the house. I take contract for deed or lease purchase or rent to own, whatever you want to call it. Because that has been my ultimate goal as a real estate investor, is not to manage property. I only have about 3 units that I have sold on contract for deed, But I think that's a claim to fame that I've gotten from you, that you don't have any maintenance issues.
No, I have a lot of rental property. I'm about 35 rentals. I probably have, another 10 or 12 or 15 under contract for deed at the moment.
That you just collect checks.
I forget I even have them until something comes up.
And then what's the percentage you'd say that they would be in default? Like you loan?
Oh, well, they'll default. Probably 35% of them will default. I'd like to say none, but
Sure.
That's not the way it works. However, most of the time when they default, I make money.
Well, you get it back and start all over.
And
right?
usually, because they were homeowners, they weren't too hard on it. And once in a great while, I have to foreclose one, but I have an agreement with a foreclosure attorney to do a flat rate foreclosure, whether it's a $10,000 deal or a $1 million deal, for $1,400.
Great.
And so I just foreclose them when I have to and go down the road. I don't want to. I wish everybody I sold a house to paid for it and lived a happy life there forever and ever. But unfortunately, about a third of them don't.
Sure.
And that's one reason is I'm taking people that might or might not be able to qualify for a conventional loan.
Right. And they still get to live their dream of owning home ownership.
And they get tax deductions and other things that help them.
All right. If we get more time into that, we'll get into that.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, it's a whole other. Believe me, Pat will be back on the show just to talk about subject twos, and we might even cover that a little bit today. And
that's going to be a hard
deeds.
one to cover. That's a tough one. Subject twos are a great way to buy property for a guy that's just starting out. We could have a series of a dozen podcasts on how to do subject twos.
And we will.
And we will. But
and we're going to come on location.
Probably not going to happen today.
Okay.
Please.
So let's get into private money.
Okay.
If you can remember, is it okay if I ask your age?
I'm 68.
Okay.
Yeah.
And still young. 68. And can you remember what, like, your first private lending that you've asked for money? Like you?
Yes, I probably can.
Okay. Tell us about
Well,
it.
the very first one I ever did, and I did it this way because I'd heard you could, but I hadn't done it. Okay.
Okay.
I used an option to buy a 30-acre tract of land in Choctaw, Oklahoma,
Okay.
on Northeast 10th Street and Henny Road.
Okay.
And I gave the guy $500 for the option and I got a 6-month option from him. I think he was a friend of my dad, and I think he kind of let me have it for a small
Okay.
number.
Let's clarify option. So he's got a piece of
I've
paper.
got an option to buy the property.
That means he guarantees to purchase the property for a specific amount
for
with
a specific time.
When you put
$30,000, and
what was the time frame?
6 months.
6 months. So you had 6 months,
Right, to pay it off.
To pay it off. To
Okay.
Get
Then
a loan.
I went to a surveyor and that I knew, and I said, "Give me a price to make this into 1-acre tracts." So he gave me a price, and I said, "I'll pay you double that, but I can't pay you anything if it doesn't get approved by the city of Choctaw. If it does, I'll pay you when I close the loan with the bank." My banker said, "I'll finance 100% of this deal, but you got to have a fileable plat before I'll loan you 1 cent."
So they get turned down.
No, it
Basically.
got approved. I got it
Okay.
approved.
Okay.
So then the surveyor did the survey, and I went and paved the road. My dad owned the equipment. I used him to pave the road, and I went out to builders. And while I was paving the road, I sold all the lots. And at the time, I got about $8,000 a piece for them. Some of them $9,000. So probably an average of $8,500. And there were 16, 18 of them, 20 of them maybe, almost about 20 of them, I guess. So I got $160,000. Had about $30,000 in the deal, plus $2,500 in the survey, and plus another $10 in street. So I probably had $45. They call it $50,000 in it. So in about a 95-day period of time, I made $100,000, and I did not have about $500 of my money in it. And
On the option.
The truth was, I borrowed the $500 from a friend of mine to see if I could do it without one single red cent.
Okay.
of my money.
When did you do this? How old were you?
Oh, I was probably 36 or 37 when I did that deal.
Transaction. Okay.
I still drive through that subdivision. Nice subdivision.
And then you were doing so well. So how do you raise private money now? Do you just
today I don't have to do much. I have a series of investors today who probably take care of my needs without me going out and spending any time getting new. But when I started, the first thing you do is you look for people who have money that's not working. And by working, I mean they have money in CDs, they have money in savings accounts, they have money in IRAs that they've worked over the years to build up. They have money in some type of early retirement, 401k, where like when the General Motors plant closed, there were a lot of people that took early retirement and got a settlement and put it in that went into an IRA. And those things are earning virtually no money. I mean, right now I think your IRAs are less than 1%. Well, what happens is those are held by a custodian or a bank or some other custodian, such as Fidelity Investments or somebody.
And we're talking about IRA?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody holds that money. whether it be
Holds your
Bank First
retirement.
Or whoever. Okay, holds that money in the custodian. Well, they then turn around and loan it out. So you go to any bank in town, they have IRA money that's on deposit with them. You borrow it to buy a new car, buy a house or whatever. You pay them 3 to 7% interest, depending on what it is. But they are paying 1% or less on the IRA to the IRA investor, and so they're keeping the difference. That's how banks make money.
Sure.
Well, I said, okay, I'll find somebody that's got the money, and I'll pay them what I'd pay the bank. It'll be a killer deal for them and a killer deal for me.
Okay. Now you got to convince people to
trust me.
Hand over $50,000.
Well, the way I did that was I knew some people. From time to time, I was able to do it. The first place I perfected it was getting sellers to carry back a mortgage on the property they were selling me. And they already owned that property, so that was financeable because if they had a property, let's say that, but back when I started, a lot of them had FHA loans or were free and clear, and they would take back a second above that FHA loan for 90% of the purchase price, and I could get in a $60,000 house for $5,000 or $6,000, make them a monthly payment big enough to pay their mortgage and the second mortgage.
So it's like a contract for deed for you.
Yeah, very much. And then I thought, well, there's people out there that have money that don't know what to do with it. And so I was looking I knew about the mortgage business. I'd bought and sold mortgages. I knew how that part of the business worked. So I went to a company called Equity Trust, and I wasn't the only one. I was just one of the early ones. I'm not sure how many, but I was one of the very early ones. Equity Trust was known years ago by another name. And they were an IRA custodian. And we said, well, why can't you store these people's money like the government says you have to, fill out the government paperwork, and let us pay you a fee?
Sure.
And they said, well, we could. That'd be fine. And I said, then we could borrow that money back and use it for whatever and pay the IRA through you, the custodian, the monthly payments. Why wouldn't that work? And they said, well, it would work. And they wanted the deposits. So we worked out a system where you could transfer your money from where you had it to them as a custodian with no taxable event whatsoever. And then I could turn around and borrow that money from them on a first mortgage on a piece of real estate here in Oklahoma. And I never exceeded about 65% of value, sometimes 70%, but right in that area, which left the investor who owned the IRA a very nice, safe first mortgage on a piece of property. Far safer than stocks or bonds or whatever, which is what Fidelity would do with your money. The bank would loan it out on cars or whatever here.
Sure.
But real estate's a safer bet than either one of those. Anyway, that's what I would do with the money, and it allowed me to pay you, the investor, through your IRA, a much higher rate of return because let's say I was paying you 10%. It was 10% tax deferred as opposed to 1 to 5% that the IRA custodian was paying you, be it a bank or be it Fidelity or somebody. And so I could pay much higher rate. Now I pay 6%. That's all I pay. And the reason is I have more people wanting to loan me money than I need, so I don't pay higher rate. But I started off paying higher rate. Interest rates were higher.
All right. We know that we have a class coming up in June at the end of the month, next month, a month from now, June 25th. You're going to teach people how to raise private money and use private money. So give us some tips. Like, I've heard the thing called a credibility kit. Do you have that now? I know it's easy for you, so you got to think like because you have all this history.
Yes, I did that, and I used to hold some seminars or evenings at a hotel like the Hilton or someplace.
Okay.
And I would put a table out with pictures, 8 by 10 photographs of all of the properties that I owned.
That you currently owned at the time. At
the time, and I would list a little blurb below them about
the property,
what it was,
what the return
how it was
is.
rented, how it was financed. Generally, I didn't put the investor's name.
And these are your other private monies.
Yes.
Okay.
Because some of them would have objected to the world knowing what they
if I loaned you money, I don't want everybody to know that.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And so, but I would do that, and I made up a slideshow that had audio and sound and all, still have it. It's a little out of date because I don't use it much anymore, but it actually allowed me to talk over the slides and show the properties and show how I do it and why it's a good deal for me. And why it's a good deal for you, the owner of the IRA or
to give me
401k.
to let me use your money. Okay,
Right.
what kind of returns? How do you sell it to someone? Like sell me like, hey, I got $100,000 in the bank.
Okay, you got it in the bank and it's earning 1% interest. So
Right,
it's earning
terrible. Below that.
Yeah,
right now
it's
it's like 0.75. That went up from half a point.
Okay, so it's
a
earning
debate.
you a minuscule, tiny amount of money.
Sure, it's a
it's
waste of
being
time.
inflated. You're losing it by inflation up
Sure.
to about 3%. So you're actually losing a couple of percent a year, even though it don't seem like it.
Right.
I'm going to pay you, if you loaned your money to me, I'm going to pay you 6%. It's going to grow tax deferred. If you're in a 30 to 35% tax bracket, like most people, state and federal, that means you're going to get an equivalent yield of about 9%. Now, it's going to be secured, and this is a very important word, secured. Secured means it's secured by a first mortgage on a single-family home or a single piece of property, whatever the property might be.
Collateralized.
That's collateral. Now, the difference is you buy stocks or bonds, you get a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you get. You do not have a lien against their typewriters, their building, their parking lot, or anything else.
It's fake.
Yeah, it's fake, really.
Me. Yeah.
Confidence. That's all it is. It's confidence. Where here, if I defaulted, that property would become the property of that IRA and its owner of the IRA, who is you in this case.
Sure.
So what would happen is you could continue to direct the IRA to rent the property, and the money would go into the IRA just like I was making payments. You could sell the property, and your lump sum would come back, plus any profit I had in the property would come back to your IRA, and it would all be tax deferred.
Okay, now, so what's the terms? How long? Like,
I
so I got
normally do a
$100,000.
5-year term.
So you do a 5-year lock balloon so that you can't get no.
I do a 5-year balloon. I normally amortize it on 15 years.
Okay.
And that gives you the option then to exit or renew.
Okay.
And if you renew, you're going to renew at whatever the market rate of interest is. And that's going to be something you and I are going to negotiate.
Sure. In the begin, do you negotiate that in the beginning?
On the first 5 years.
So
And at the end of that 5 years, if you wanted to renew, it would be whatever I was paying in that time frame.
All right. It sounds so easy to get money, and I know people that do get private money, and they say it's so easy. What's it like? Is there a ratio between how many people say no to say yes? Because like there's a lady that I met the other day. Her husband went to a Rich Dad Poor Dad, class.
Oh, yeah, right.
And they want to get in real estate. They have $75,000 burning a hole in their pocket, but they don't want to be landlords. But they do want to invest. They want to get involved. And I felt when I got done meeting with them that I could ask them, maybe you should do private money. How do I?
Well, that's
what do
a
I say?
suggestion to them. And what I would show them is some of your properties. If I were you, I would get them in my car.
Okay.
I would take them around and I would show them some properties, and I would show them the good and the bad. In other words, I'd say, this is one ready to rent.
Okay.
This is what one looks like when I buy it.
That's right.
That's what I do. That'll impress them. And not only that, it will give you're leveling with them. You're not painting them any kind of blue sky. But the point more than anything is they need you as badly as you need them. They don't know they need you. That needs to be explained to them.
And how do I explain that? Hey, you're getting 0.75%.
The first thing I tell people is, do you have an IRA? Do you have a 401k? Do you have a CD?
Yes.
Do you have a savings account?
Yes.
What are you earning on those things?
1%.
Would you like to earn 6?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah, because I'm only getting like $60 a year.
Would you be willing to meet me one day next week and let me show you how you can do that?
Sure. Are you going to try to sell me something?
No, I'm going to show you what I do. If you like it, fine. If you don't, no problem.
Okay.
I will meet you at Starbucks. We'll have a cup of coffee. We'll get in the car, and I'll show you what I do.
Okay.
And if you like it, great. If you don't like it, I appreciate you meeting me, and I'll buy the coffee.
All right. So that's kind of your introduction. So you get them going, and then what's a quantified rate there? Like how many people
go out with me and look, and they have a serious interest, I'll close 70-80% of those.
Okay, so how do you close them? Like, what do you do?
Well,
like, what's the process?
They'll look at those properties. They'll become interested. And then I will simply say, this is what I have available.
Okay.
If you'd like to get on a waiting list, we can do that. Most of the time right now, I'm blessed with a waiting list.
Sure.
Now, there have been times when I wasn't, when I needed money right away. But most of the time right now, if you call me, I'd probably be 3 to 4 months out.
So people
before I
call you
wanted your
now.
money. Yeah.
People call you now and say, "Hey, I have $100,000 burnt. I'm not getting a return.
Yeah.
I know real
I
estate's
had some
working."
people call one day and they said, we sold our lake house or whatever. We don't go down there much anymore. It was $150,000. We'd like to get on the list.
Cool.
They had been on the list on other properties and had some other properties. They just came in. I had another one call me one time and said, "We've inherited some money."
Okay.
I don't know the circumstances. It wasn't any of my business, but they had an extra 50. Like that.
Okay. So then, hey, I got the $50,000 in the bank, and I want to invest with you, Pat. What's the next step? What do I do?
Well, I'll help you. That's the way you have to do this. You're going to learn to do this. I get the certain documents, which I download off the internet from Equity Trust, which is the custodian I use today.
Okay, cool.
And I help you fill those out. They're very simple. And we email them back to Equity Trust.
Do you explain Equity Trust and what their role is in this?
Equity Trust is the custodian. Think of the custodian. It can be a bank. It can be a stock brokerage house. It can be a savings and loan. It can be some financial institution.
Someone that's the middle person.
Now, they are appointed by the IRS to be a custodian. They fulfill all of the IRS reporting requirements and all that.
Okay.
Now, there's two ways that custodians work. One way is they invest your money, pay you whatever they agreed to pay you, and keep the difference, i.e. banks, Fidelity,
hedge
those
funds.
kinds of people. Fidelity will sell you stock for your IRA. They'll make a commission on the stock, and they make a fee on doing the IRA.
Okay.
Now, Equity Trust says, we'll just charge you a flat rate for how much money you put here on a yearly basis, which about $100,000 is about $500. And that's all we charge. We don't care if you put money here and buy the Hope Diamond. We don't care if you buy cars. We don't care what you do with it. As long as it's a legal IRA transaction that the IRS will approve, we'll fund it if you instruct us to. It's your money. Now, the way you keep it from being a taxable event to you, the investor, is it's an arm's length transaction. By arm's length, like you and I. We're friends, but we're not brother-in-laws or anything like that. So you're putting your money there. I'm borrowing your money. I'm paying a real interest rate back on it. It's not some deal where you're living in the house. You see what I mean? It's a real, true, arm's length real estate investment. Then there is no IRA or IRS problem.
Sure.
Now, one of the things that Equity Trust will do, if you don't do the documents right, they'll say, no, you got to do this or this and this because you're not going to be in compliance if you don't. Now, when I make my mortgage company check, every month when I pay your back.
Pay me back.
It says Equity Trust, FBO, which stands for the benefit of Stephen Van Cowenberg, IRA 12345 or whatever.
Okay.
And that check goes off to them, and they put it in your account.
So I'm an investor, and I'm trying to explain to my aunt that she needs to loan me money through her IRA because she's getting a terrible return. Do they like the word Equity Trust because they never heard of the custodial before? I mean,
most people
does it help
don't.
You? Does it help you? Because how I would sell it would be, hey, this is a transaction that's a third party that it's not. You're not wiring me money. It goes in there, and then they file a lien at the closing company when we close the transaction. When I pick the property, and I can send you the numbers, the terms, and all that jazz. Then they file a lien in your name in your IRA on top of the property. Is that right? And that's how they kind of tones
them down. I never touch the money. I've had people want to give me the money. I don't want their money.
Yeah, don't write me a check.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you
not.
say write it to.
It needs to go to First American Title.
Okay,
and Equity Trust, and I will instruct Equity Trust that you're going to do. I'll give you the forms that you have to sign. I'll help you do that, and you send those to Equity Trust. Then I'll instruct the title company that they'll get a wire transfer from Equity Trust. Equity Trust will look at the note, the mortgage that I prepare, and they'll be acceptable with it. Then I will bring that to closing, and the title company will execute those. I'll sign them. They'll notarize them. They'll file the mortgage at the courthouse and send it to Equity Trust.
Okay. All right, folks. Listen, we're already at
it's way harder to do than 30 minutes.
We got about we got about 4 or 5 more minutes, but we're gonna have Pat back on every week until his day of class. He is teaching a class. It is in Oklahoma City on May 25th at the Savvy offices. If you want to know more information, you can go to okcclass.com or classokc.com and you go right to his class. It's $100. It's going to be for 2 hours. It's going to be intensive. When you leave there that night, you will know, and you will be able and armed to go borrow money from private IRAs.
We hope so. Some people will be better at it than others in the couple of hour period of time, but we'll get you started with what it takes.
Okay. Well, the concepts.
Yes.
All right. So we got a few more minutes. Tell us more about like the good, the bad, or what's a thing that may go wrong. No, let's not talk about that.
Let me tell you about some benefits to you.
Okay, as the person owning
you're
the money.
investor.
Okay.
The first benefit to you is you're going to pay on investment property. You're going to pay 6-7%. You ain't going to get that for 3%.
Sure.
The bank won't give it to you. They may give it to you on your house for 3.5% or something, but they won't give it to you on anything else. Now, you sign this with no personal liability.
Me, as it because I borrow your money. Okay, it's based
I
on
write
the asset.
the mortgage. The mortgage says right in it that the note does, and the mortgage that the property that's described in this mortgage stands for 100% of the debt obligation, which means I am not personally liable. Now, I've never defaulted on one in my life, never intend to.
Sure.
But if I had to, it wouldn't bankrupt me.
And then is there a percentage what's the safety net for the IRA lender to you, the person that's
he'll have a property. Let's say the property's worth 50.
Okay.
I'll have a mortgage of 40 or 38. Well, the property's still worth 50. Well, if I defaulted, he could still sell it for 50.
Right, and he'll make
maybe
some
even
money.
More. But
or he can
50.
just sell it to me and I'll buy it.
But my point being, he could sell the property, recover his money, pay his realtor, and still have all his money back and a little more to go with it.
Sure.
Now, if he wanted to. Now, the next thing he could do, he could just keep renting it.
Oh, that's right. He owns the asset.
Yeah, the rent checks go to his IRA every month.
So if you slip and fall and die and you didn't have a will and you lost this house, it's 100% goes to the
whoever,
mortgage,
yeah.
and that mortgage is backed by the IRA and then equity trust,
this goes
whatever
in the IRA.
would say. And then all of a sudden so me, if I ever became super cash heavy wealthy, I could loan money out, and I got an army of people out there working for me. I'm loaning them money. They're finding deals. They're financing them at a percentage. What percentage rate do you try? Like 60, 70, 80%?
I never exceed about 70% of value.
Just super safe. So 30% of
So if the market
margin.
went down, you'd still have a good loan, unless it went drastically down. I mean, it could go down a lot and still not make your property worth less than its
Another
owed on it.
quick question: how do you service the loan? Do you write them you write it to?
I write
Trust?
a check and send it to Equity Trust,
and then they
Trust
put it
takes
in.
care of everything else.
Okay. And do you send the customer or the private money guy? Do you send or gal? Do you send them a statement?
No, they can go out on the internet and see their statement every time.
So boom, they see. Oop, I get $310. I'm making.
It'll show right there on. It's about 2 days after Equity Trust receives the money. It'll show in their account, and they just go right on their website and see it. And they could probably get a hard one, or they could call me. I'd be glad to make sure that they got paid, but
okay.
I don't have any problem with that.
All right, we got about 2 more minutes. Let's get another quick one in there. How about if I'm the private money guy, I'm loaning you money, Pat, and I need that $30,000.
Well,
have you ever had that question?
I've had it happen, and depending on why you need it, I often will make some arrangement to bail you out.
Because you have a long
list of people. Now, at the same time, I have to have some security for myself. That's the reason I have a 5-year term.
Sure.
I mean, I have to be able to sleep nights. I can't have you call me up and want your money back in a week.
Yeah, and you've already done all this work, and now
I've got millions of dollars out there, and everybody wants their money back. That wouldn't work. But
like
at the same time, I've had people that had some catastrophic medical or something and needed their money. Generally, I have enough people within a couple months or so I can move.
So basically, it would be like refinance with another private lender.
Exactly, and that one would still be an equity trust, and we still use a title company and the whole bit. Now, they would have some extra cost because you're going to have to pay the title company some fees to draw the paperwork and handle the filing. So if you had a $50,000 loan with me, the fees might come to $250, $300.
Okay.
That is not my responsibility, nor the new investor's responsibility.
All right. Another question. So I'm an investor. I got private money lined up. What fees does it charge me as an investor to borrow private money?
Nothing.
Exactly.
That's it. I can have it waiting. And the difference is I'm not standing around on the sidelines like you are. Like, let's take you and me right now. We go out and look at a house in the next 30 minutes.
Okay.
I'm going to tell them, I'll give you this.
Okay.
Because I got it.
Right now.
Right now.
I got cash.
I got it right now.
And me,
you're wondering if the bank can be persuaded to do this.
Well, I wonder if the appraisal will come in.
You want to call the bank. You want to call the appraiser. You want to see what's going to happen. It'll take you 10 days to know if you can do this or not.
Well, I know already.
I'm ready to sign the contract today and close it as soon as the title work is clear because I have the money.
So private money, another advantage is that speed.
And I'll tell you what else. It's not only speed. When you talk to the customer, you sound different when you know you have the money.
Yeah, you're just confident.
And they sense it. They may not know it, but they sense it.
Excellent. Man, I don't want to cut this short, but next week we'll have Pat come back and just ramp us up again. You do not want to miss June 25th, Oklahoma City, private money, self-directed IRA class. Pat's going to tear the roof up. And we're going to learn so much. Pat, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
I'll look forward to next week.
You'll be on. All right. Take care. Buy assets.